The first bell in Estrellas Academy didn't ring, it resonated. A low, harmonic pulse rolled through the corridors like a breath through glass, vibrating the walls and armor of 100 alien cadets as they drifted toward the lecture hall. Each step, each wing beat, each click of chitin echoed beneath a ceiling of luminous gas veins. It was beauty by design, an orchestra of precision where chaos didn't belong. And then a human walked in. Lyra Hale stepped across the grav floor with the silent confidence of someone who had learned to survive where gravity itself tried to kill you. Her boots hissed softly, the magnetic soles adjusting to the Academy's fluctuating field. Around her, the whispers began. Deathworlder. They actually sent one? I heard their blood corrodes armor. Lyra ignored it all. The oxygen mix here was too thin, the temperature too cold, and the light too sterile. But humans had adapted to worse. She pulled her regulation jacket tighter, feeling the weight of stairs as she approached her assigned desk. It wasn't much of a desk, more like a floating crystal panel bound by psionic filaments. She placed her hand on the surface, and the structure flickered briefly, reacting to her human biosignature with what looked suspiciously like hesitation. At the front of the hall, Commander Saren Val stood with his hands behind his back, his dark scales refracting light into dull blue lines. He didn't glance up when she entered. He didn't need to. The disdain in the room followed his lead. "Cadets," Val began, his voice a controlled snarl. "Today we continue planetary briefings. Species histories, environmental stress responses, tactical conditioning. Our next presenter," he finally looked up, "is Hale, from Earth." The word Earth carried the weight of legend and accusation both. The other cadets shifted in their seats, some curious, most dismissive. Val gestured toward the center of the room. "Begin, Deathworlder." Lyra stood slowly. The microgravity resisted her movement slightly, and she caught the edge of the desk to steady herself. She didn't speak right away. The last time she had, an entire simulation chamber had collapsed from the harmonic feedback. She had promised herself this wouldn't happen again. Her fingers brushed the translator node on her collar. The device blinked green, ready. She exhaled. "Planet. Earth," she began quietly. The translator hesitated, processing her tone. It came out raw, low, threaded with the grit of atmospheric distortion. The cadets' ears twitched. Some flinched. Others snickered. Our biosphere evolved under high gravity, variable magnetic fields, and a high-pitched laugh cut through her words. Tyran Drax, the crystalline cadet 3 seats over, had reclined back, a mocking grin splitting his translucent face. "Apologies," he said loudly, voice tinkling like breaking glass. "It's just her voice. It sounds like metal grinding through dirt." More laughter followed, a cascade of clicking mandibles and whirring resonance organs. Even the ambient hum of the Academy shifted slightly, responding to the noise. Lyra kept her expression neutral. She tried again. "As I was saying—" "Oh, do continue," Drax interrupted. "Tell us about your oceans. I heard they're toxic to most civilized species." Val didn't intervene. His narrow eyes flicked toward her with amusement. "Control your tone, Cadet Hale. You are addressing your superiors." The edges of Lyra's vision shimmered faintly. The hum beneath the desks deepened. She clenched her jaw. "Stay calm. Don't let it rise." "My tone is controlled, sir," she replied, her words careful even. The room seemed to pause. Her voice hit a lower register, brushing the frequency the Academy's psionic dampeners weren't designed to handle. Every desk vibrated, a subtle rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat through the alloy floor. "Did you feel that?" one cadet whispered. Lyra swallowed hard. "Earth's environment shaped us into adaptive organisms. High gravity increased skeletal density. Atmospheric chaos encouraged endurance." Her voice wavered, not from fear, but from the struggle to maintain normal speech patterns. The resonance crawled up her throat, seeking release. Drax laughed again. "Endurance? Or barbarism?" A sharp crack echoed. Everyone turned. A hairline fracture had appeared across the floor panel beneath Drax's desk. "Silence!" Commander Val snapped, glancing down in irritation. "Harmonic interference from the systems, nothing more," but Lyra knew. She could feel it, her pulse syncing with the subsonic thrum of the alloy. She took a shallow breath and forced herself to finish. "Our adaptability," she said, slower now, "isn't a defect. It's survival." The word survival carried an undertone so low it bypassed hearing and struck bone. Every cadet felt it, a pressure behind the eyes, like deep water pressing inward. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then, as if someone had flipped a switch, the lights flickered. The Academy's AI crackled overhead, stabilizing field integrity. "Source unidentified." Val's gaze snapped to her. "Hale, sit down." Lyra lowered her head. "Yes, Commander." She took her seat quietly, the tension curling through her chest like coiled wire. Around her, no one laughed anymore, but she could feel the fear crawling through the silence, thin and electric. The rest of the lecture passed in fragments. She barely heard the other presentations. Her own voice still echoed faintly in her ears, too heavy, too human. When the dismissal tone rang, she gathered her tablet and stood. No one blocked her path, but every cadet she passed shifted slightly away, as if afraid her shadow carried radiation. Outside the hall, the corridor stretched long and empty. The Academy's air recycled with a faint hiss, smelling faintly of ozone and metal. Lyra paused before a viewport overlooking Caldron IV's frozen surface. The planet below gleamed like fractured glass. She pressed her hand against the cold panel. It vibrated under her touch. Not much, just enough to remind her what she was. Her voice could kill. On Earth, it had shattered training domes, ruptured machines, broken bones in simulation drones. They called it resonance syndrome. The diplomats called it an unfortunate evolutionary quirk. But she knew what it really was: humanity's final adaptation, the ability to weaponize sound, emotion, and physics itself. She'd come here to learn restraint. But restraint, she realized, wasn't peace. It was silence wearing armor. Behind her, soft footsteps echoed. Commander Val's reflection appeared in the glass. "You're unstable," he said quietly. "That's why they sent you here." "To fail." Lyra didn't look back. "Then why are you afraid?" The commander froze for a fraction of a second. He hadn't expected that. "Careful, Deathworlder," he murmured. "Mockery can be forgiven. Defiance cannot." She turned her head slightly, her reflection cutting across his. "You mistake restraint for weakness, sir." The words vibrated faintly against the glass, barely audible, but enough to make the metal frame groan. Val stepped back. Just one step, but it was enough. Lyra smiled, barely. "Permission to return to quarters?" He hesitated, then nodded sharply. "Granted." She walked away without another word. The hum of her footsteps faded, but the faint tremor in the viewport remained. In the silent corridor, the Academy's monitoring systems flickered to life. Diagnostic lines traced across the broken floor panel back in the lecture hall. The report flashed on screen: anomaly detected. Harmonic frequency human origin. Severity level contained for now. Lyra Hale exhaled slowly in her quarters, eyes closed, pulse steadying. Tomorrow, they'd laugh again. And tomorrow she'd try to stay silent. But if they pushed harder, if they mocked louder, she knew what would happen. The walls would remember her voice. The Academy didn't sleep, it pulsed. Every corridor of Astraeus hummed with psionic feedback, every wall alive with silent data streams. For most cadets, the rhythm of the station was comforting, a lullaby of order. For Lyra Hale, it was a heartbeat waiting to synchronize with hers. She woke before the artificial dawn, eyes fixed on the shifting lights above her bunk. The previous day replayed in fragments, the laughter, the fracture in the floor, Commander Val's contempt. Her throat still felt raw, like she'd swallowed thunder. When the morning tone resonated through the hall, Lyra rose, slipping into her uniform. The material was sleek, designed to regulate alien metabolisms, not human skin. It clung too tightly, too cold. She ignored it. Humans adapted. That was what they did best. Outside, cadets floated through the corridor in organized silence. No one greeted her. Some turned away. Others stared, eyes sharp with fear disguised as curiosity. Her translator node flickered amber on her collar. Faulty. The mockery of her voice yesterday must have disrupted its alignment. She adjusted it, but the light stayed dim. The device wasn't broken, it was warning her. Her resonance field was interfering again. She headed toward the combat atrium for morning drills. The chamber was a vast dome of layered gravity wells and hard light constructs, where species from across the galaxy learned to fight together, or at least pretend to. Commander Vol waited at the far end, standing beside a row of training drones. His voice carried across the chamber, amplified through the comms grid. Pair formations. Cross-species simulation. His eyes swept the ranks, stopping on her. Cadet Hale, you'll partner with Cadet Drax. A low ripple of amusement moved through the crowd. Drax stepped forward, crystalline armor gleaming. An honor, he said, bowing mockingly. I'll try not to shatter too easily. Lyra met his gaze. You might want to, the others chuckled. Vol's smirk deepened. Begin! Gravity twisted. The floor shifted from stable footing to floating platforms orbiting a glowing center. Drax lunged first, wings of translucent shards flaring behind him. His strikes came sharp and elegant like precision drills. Lyra moved differently, grounded, deliberate, each motion efficient and stripped of flourish. Drax's blows sliced the air inches from her face. Too slow, he taunted. She parried one strike, the vibration traveling up her arm like static. Too loud, she murmured. He laughed, circling her. They said Deathworlders break under pressure. Maybe your voice can cry for help before She caught his arm. The impact resonated. A faint hum traveled through the metal of his exosuit. Drax froze for half a heartbeat. The air around them rippled faintly, invisible to others but burning against her skin. Let go, he hissed. She released him, stepping back. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She could feel the resonance crawling beneath her skin, wanting out. Vol's voice echoed through the dome. Again, she barely touched you, Drax. You call that combat? Drax's eyes narrowed. Understood, Commander. He lunged again, faster, feinting left and striking toward her throat. Lyra ducked, but his crystalline claws grazed her collar, tearing through the translator node. The device sparked and died. For one instant, her voice was unfiltered. She gasped, and the sound that came out wasn't human speech. It was vibration and tone, low and layered, carrying a frequency that rattled through the arena floor. Drax stumbled, losing balance as the platform beneath him shivered. The entire chamber paused. System error, the AI stammered overhead. Unregistered resonance detected. Lyra's breathing quickened. She could feel everyone's eyes on her. She clamped her mouth shut, forcing the hum back down. Commander Vol's voice sliced through the silence. Hale, stand down, she nodded quickly, grabbing the broken node from her collar. It was an accident. My translator malfunctioned. Drax regained his stance, fury glittering in his crystalline eyes. You did that on purpose? No, she said quietly. He stepped closer, light refracting off him like blades. Say it again, Drax, say it. I want to hear that thing you call a voice. Enough, Vol barked. But Drax ignored him. He reached out, grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. Speak, Deathworlder. Show us what's hiding behind that human mask. Lyra's pulse spiked. The pressure in her throat coiled tight. She whispered one word. Don't. The sound barely carried, but the air changed. The floating platforms froze in their orbit. Crystalline dust lifted off the ground. A fine crack slithered across Drax's armor like lightning trapped in glass. He gasped, stepping back. His hand shook. What did you... Lyra's eyes widened. She hadn't meant to. The resonance had slipped through instinct, not intent. Commander Vol's order roared through the comms. Cease activity. All cadets out, now! The dome emptied in chaos, boots scraping, wings flapping, voices tangled in fear. Lyra stayed where she was, trembling as Drax's armor continued to fracture in delicate spiderwebs across his chest plate. Vol deactivated the gravity field, slamming the platforms into static alignment. He approached her slowly. What did you just do? Lyra's voice was small. I don't know. It wasn't deliberate. He stopped an arm's length away. That sound, our instruments registered seismic frequencies. You could have collapsed the entire atrium. I tried to stop it. she said, shaking her head. It reacts when I'm provoked. He studied her face, expression unreadable. When you're provoked, not threatened, yes. Val's gaze hardened. Then control it, or I will have you sent back to Earth in restraints. Lyra met his eyes. You think that would stop it? His nostrils flared. You're not invincible. I never said I was. For a moment, silence stretched between them, tense and humming with unspoken fear. Val turned sharply. You're confined to quarters until further notice. The Council will decide disciplinary action. Yes, Commander. As he left, the lights dimmed back to normal. Drax stood at the far side, his armor still shimmering with fractures. He didn't speak. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by a look that was almost reverent. Lyra turned away, clutching the ruined translator in her fist. Back in her quarters, she placed the device on her desk. The tiny shards of circuitry gleamed faintly under the low light. She could still feel the vibrations in her bones, echoing through her chest like an aftershock. Her reflection stared back at her from the metal wall. The girl who looked out wasn't the one who'd left Earth. Her eyes were harder now. The calm she'd been trained to keep was eroding. She activated her data terminal and replayed the training footage. The moment of resonance flashed in silence, Drax's armor cracking, the shockwave distorting air, her own mouth barely open. The system registered the energy burst under one tag: Origin, Human Vocal Frequency Power, Class 3 Resonance Event. She exhaled slowly. It's getting stronger. The AI voice responded softly, almost uncertain. Would you like me to delete the record? Lyra hesitated. No, let them see it. Outside her quarters, rumors were already spreading. Cadets whispered of a voice that broke crystal, of a human who could shatter command. Lyra sat back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling's faint glow. Her father's words came back from her last day on Earth. Control isn't silence, Lyra, it's direction. The galaxy won't respect you until it remembers what you're made of. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the tribunal would come, and she would have to speak again, whether she wanted to or not. For now, she stayed still, listening to the station breathe. The hum of the walls aligned with her heartbeat once more. Somewhere deep inside the Academy's structure, the metal responded with a faint sympathetic vibration, like an echo waiting for command. Lyra Hale exhaled slowly in her quarters, eyes closed, pulse steadying. Tomorrow, they'd laugh again. And tomorrow, she'd try to stay silent. But if they pushed harder, if they mocked louder, she knew what would happen. The walls would remember her voice. The tribunal chamber of Astraeus Academy was built to intimidate. A half-dome of alloyed glass opened to the void of space, Caldron IV's frozen storms swirling below. Rows of alien instructors filled the seats in ascending tiers, each species represented in ceremonial precision. The air vibrated faintly with restrained psionic fields, meant to suppress violence, not fear. Lyra Hale stood alone in the center, her wrists locked in light restraints that glowed pale blue. Her uniform was torn from training, a faint burn mark visible along her collarbone. She kept her gaze forward, steady but unreadable. Commander Val stood beside the tribunal bench. His posture was proud, voice cold as he addressed the council. Cadet Hale is accused of deploying a weaponized resonance frequency within the combat atrium, endangering 37 cadets and damaging Academy property. Her own explanation, "I was provoked," is insufficient justification for the harm caused. The lead arbiter, a tall Irixian with skin like flowing mercury, tilted his head. "We have reviewed the sensor data. The energy signature matches no known weapon class." "That's because it isn't a weapon," Lyra said quietly. The murmuring began instantly. Voices of disbelief, whispers of danger, speculation. The arbiter raised a hand and silence returned. "Then explain what it is." Lyra's throat tightened. The translator node had been replaced with a neutral model, calibrated to suppress her natural range. It felt wrong, like trying to breathe through glass. My voice interacts with certain frequencies. Humans evolved under gravitational and atmospheric pressures your species never experienced. Resonance is part of that adaptation. Val's lips curled. Adaptation? You shattered reinforced alloy by whispering. That's not adaptation, Hale. That's instability. Lyra turned her head slightly toward him. Instability implies lack of control. You don't understand what control costs us. The Arbiter leaned forward. You claim this is natural? That all humans possess such destructive potential? No, Lyra replied. Only those who've learned to survive where the planet itself tries to kill them every day. A hush fell over the hall. The alien cadets in the gallery shifted uneasily. Most had heard the myths, how Earth's atmosphere was poisoned to weaker species, how its storms shredded drones, how humans were still walking out of environments others called uninhabitable. But myths weren't supposed to stand trial. Val stepped closer to the dais, his voice rising. You're dangerous. I said it the moment you arrived. You don't belong among civilized species. Civilized, Lyra repeated, almost a whisper. You mean compliant? Gasps rippled through the room. The restraint bands around her wrists tightened. Watch your tone, cadet, Val warned. Lyra lifted her head, meeting his gaze. You brought me here to learn discipline, but discipline isn't silence, Commander. It's knowing when not to be. Her pulse quickened. The dampeners hummed, but she felt the air beginning to respond again. The faint hum that preceded resonance. The Arbiter spoke, voice metallic, but calm. Cadet Hale, if you cannot contain your frequencies, we will be forced to neutralize, she cut him off softly. Containment isn't the same as peace. The lights flickered. Every instructor glanced upward as the air itself seemed to vibrate. Val slammed his hand on the dais. Enough! Speak properly, Deathworlder. Something broke in her restraint. Not physical, but emotional. For the first time since she arrived, she stopped suppressing the voice she'd been taught to hide. She looked directly at him. Properly? She said. The word carried layers, deep and resonant. The desks began to hum. A quiver passed through the tribunal floor. The psionic stabilizers sparked in confusion, unable to anchor her frequency. Val took a step back. What are you? Listening, she said, barely above a whisper. The walls responded. Vibrations rippled outward, harmonics finding sympathetic frequencies in the alloy structure. A deep groan echoed through the hall. Cracks spread along the seams of the desks, glowing faintly as energy traveled through them like lightning through glass. Emergency dampeners! The Arbiter shouted. Too late. The resonance amplified itself. The air folded, light bending into impossible patterns. Desks split down the middle with a piercing snap, halves levitating before disintegrating into crystalline dust. The ceiling's containment field buckled, releasing a rain of glowing particles that shimmered around her like snow. Lyra stood at the center of it all, untouched, calm in the storm of noise and light. The glow from her restraints dimmed, then failed entirely. The sound ended as abruptly as it had begun. Silence, pure and total, fell. The particles drifted down like ash. Commander Val knelt. One hand pressed against his ear where blood trickled from a ruptured membrane. His voice shook. What? What did you do? Lyra looked around the destroyed chamber. I spoke. The Arbiter's chair was tilted, part of the dais collapsed, but his voice still carried, faintly distorted. You have just attacked a Galactic Academy facility. She shook her head. No, I warned you. The Arbiter hesitated, then asked quietly, What are you? For the first time, she smiled, not out of pride, but recognition. Human. The silence deepened, a silence that carried meaning. The instructors and cadets stared, and in their eyes, fear had turned into something else. Respect, edged with understanding. Commander Vol rose slowly, the arrogance drained from his expression. "You'll answer for this." "I already have," she said. He looked around at the shattered room, the ruin of the Academy's order, and couldn't find an argument. Guards approached cautiously, but the Arbiter raised a hand. "Stand down." One of the younger instructors whispered, "If she wanted to, she could bring the station down." The Arbiter studied Lyra in silence before speaking. "The record will show a containment breach of unknown origin. No charges will proceed." Vol turned on him. "You can't be serious." "I'm being practical," the Arbiter replied. "We built this academy to understand strength. We've just witnessed it." The room emptied slowly, no one daring to speak above a whisper. Vol lingered the longest, his gaze locked on her. "You think this earns you respect?" "No," Lyra said softly. "It earns understanding, and that's rarer." He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. His reflection trembled in the cracked floor, fractured into dozens of pieces. Without another word, he left. Lyra stood alone among the broken desks, the faint light from Cauldron IV reflecting off the dust. She could still feel the resonance fading from her chest, the lingering echo of her own power. It wasn't pride she felt, it was release. For the first time, she hadn't hidden what she was. A voice came through the comm system, mechanical, hesitant. Structural integrity restored, anomaly contained. Lyra looked up through the shattered dome at the stars beyond. "No," she whispered. "Not contained, remembered." The echo of her voice drifted through the hall, too soft for instruments to detect, but strong enough to leave an imprint on every mind that had heard it. That night, whispers spread across Astraeus Academy. Cadets told each other of the girl from the Deathworld whose voice split steel and silence alike. By morning, an unofficial code circulated among the students. Half warning, half reverence. Do not make the Deathworlder speak twice. And deep in the Galactic archives, the entry for humanity quietly updated. Classification, force of nature. Recommended protocol. Do not provoke. Lyra Hale returned to her quarters. Outside her viewport, Cauldron IV glimmered beneath the starlight. She sat, hands steady, pulse calm. For the first time since leaving Earth, she didn't feel out of place. She belonged, because the galaxy had finally remembered why humans were feared, and why silence from a Deathworlder was never safety. She smiled faintly and whispered to the stars. Now they'll listen. The day after the tribunal, Astraeus Academy was silent. Not the structured calm of routine silence, but something deeper, unnatural, watchful. The corridors that usually pulsed with the rhythm of lectures and cadet drills now held only the faint hum of machines. Every step Lyra Hale took echoed longer than it should have, as though the station itself was still resonating with her voice. She could feel it. The walls remembered her. Her uniform had been replaced with a plain gray cadet variant, unmarked, no insignia. Her clearance to most facilities was revoked. Yet when she walked through the halls, no one stopped her. The alien cadets moved aside like waves parting around a rock. Eyes followed her, wide and uncertain. Some looked afraid, others curious. Lyra's path led her to the observation deck, a long glass corridor overlooking Cauldron IV's horizon. The ice storms below shimmered in turquoise spirals, their electrical veins flashing in silence. She watched for a long time before speaking. "They said you were dangerous," a voice came from behind. She turned. Tyrandrax stood at the doorway, his crystalline form dimmer now. The fractures in his armor had healed imperfectly, thin lines of silver running through his surface like veins. He looked smaller than before, though she knew his size hadn't changed. It was his certainty that had. "I am," Lyra said simply. He walked closer, slow, deliberate. "You could have killed me in the atrium." "I didn't." "Why not?" Lyra's reflection flickered across the glass. Two figures, alien and human, staring at a frozen world. "Because power doesn't mean cruelty. You learned that on Earth the hard way." Drax tilted his head. You're not what we thought you were. No, she said. You never thought we were anything. He said nothing, and for the first time since she arrived, the silence between them wasn't hostile. It was understanding, the quiet of two soldiers who had both seen something that couldn't be unseen. The door hissed open again. Commander Val entered, flanked by two guards. His posture was rigid, his expression unreadable. Cadet Hale, he said. The Council has reached a decision. Lyra didn't turn from the glass. I'm still breathing, so I assume it's not execution. Don't mistake tolerance for forgiveness, Val said. The incident was classified as an anomaly. You will remain under probationary observation. Effective immediately, you are reassigned from combat to field ethics. Ethics? Lyra almost smiled. You think I need philosophy lessons? Val's gaze was cold. You'll be assisting the Xenopsych Division with resonance theory. They want to understand what happened in the tribunal. And if I refuse? His tone hardened. Then we'll classify you as an unstable bioweapon and return you to Earth for containment. Lyra finally faced him. You're not afraid of me anymore? Fear and respect are not the same, he said quietly. She studied him for a long moment. No, she agreed. But they often start in the same place. He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. You've made this academy remember what humans are capable of. Don't make us regret letting you stay. When he was gone, Drax exhaled, the sound like wind through glass. He hates you. He fears losing control, Lyra said. Hate is easier to admit. For the rest of the day, she worked in the lab assigned to her, an isolated chamber lined with resonance monitors and harmonic shields. The researchers avoided eye contact, observing her through layers of transparent containment fields. She didn't mind. She was used to being studied. They asked her to speak, to hum, to recite phrases in different tones. The machines trembled each time, readings spiking into ranges the galaxy's instruments weren't built to measure. At one point, a young Irixian scientist whispered through the comm, "How do you control it?" Lyra paused. "By remembering what happens when I don't." He nodded slowly. No one asked again. When her shift ended, she walked the quiet halls back to her quarters. On the way, she passed the cracked tribunal hall. Repair drones floated through the air, piecing together the wreckage. The walls still bore faint burn marks. Her own name had been scrubbed from the day's duty roster, but she didn't care. She stopped at one of the desks, still half split along its seam. The touch of her hand sent a faint vibration through it. Soft, not destructive this time. "Sorry," she whispered to it. The alloy shivered once and went still. Later, in her quarters, she activated her terminal. Dozens of messages filled the feed, some from other cadets, others anonymous. "You shouldn't have survived that hearing. They'll never see us the same again. Teach me how to do what you did." Lyra deleted them all. She wasn't here to start a rebellion. Humanity had enough enemies already. But one message made her stop. It wasn't from a cadet. It was marked Priority, Conquered Transmission, Human Embassy. She opened it. The holographic projection flickered to life. A woman in a gray diplomatic uniform, expression calm but her eyes sharp. "Cadet Lyra Hale," the envoy said. "The Galactic Concord acknowledges your recent demonstration. The political shockwave has reached further than you realize. The Academy Council will frame this as a contained event. But among the border systems, your name is spreading." Lyra frowned. "Spreading how?" "As a reminder," the envoy replied. "They're calling you the voice from the Deathworld. Some worlds see it as proof that humans should never have joined the Concord. Others see it as a warning not to challenge us again." Lyra's chest tightened. "I didn't want to be a warning." The envoy's image softened. "No one ever does. But sometimes the galaxy listens only when we stop whispering." The transmission ended, leaving a faint glow on her desk. She sat in silence, hands folded. The hum of the station surrounded her again. Steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. She realized it wasn't the Academy's hum she heard. It was hers, resonating faintly in every beam, every surface. Earth's gravity, its storms, its chaos, they'd shaped her kind to survive anything. But survival had always come with a cost. Here, the cost was isolation. The galaxy didn't understand humanity. It only feared what it couldn't control. Lyra leaned back and closed her eyes. The hum deepened slightly, then steadied again. Control, she thought, was never about silence. It was about choice. A knock echoed on her door. "Come in," she said. The door slid open. Drax stepped inside, holding a datapad. "Commander Vol requested a full resonance analysis. I told him you already filled it out." "I didn't." "I know," he said, setting it down. "But I told him you did anyway." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Why help me?" Drax hesitated. "Because once I thought strength was measured by how loud you could speak. Now I know it's what happens when you don't have to." She looked at him for a long moment before nodding. "Thank you." He gave a short, awkward bow. "Try not to destroy any more furniture." When he left, she allowed herself a faint smile. Outside, the academy lights dimmed to night mode. The stars beyond the glass stretched in silent motion. Lyra pressed her hand to the wall. The faint vibration beneath it was no longer chaotic. It was stable, synchronized. A heartbeat shared between her and the station that once tried to contain her. Tomorrow, the cadets would train again. Classes would resume. Life would pretend to return to normal. But the echo of her voice would remain, subtle, omnipresent, a reminder that humanity's silence was never surrender. She whispered once more, this time softly enough that only the walls could hear. Not destruction, direction. And for the first time since arriving on Cauldron 4, the hum that answered her wasn't fear. It was acknowledgement, like the galaxy itself finally exhaled and listened.